Nick Chubb sustained an MCL sprain in Sunday's win over the Cowboys. He's been placed on injured reserve with a minimum absence of 3 weeks. Kareem Hunt receives a massive bump in value, and D'Ernest Johnson filled in the Chubb role effectively on Sunday. But don't expect the Browns to just carry on with him like that. They will game plan for life without him, and that likely involves more passing work for the receivers instead. Austin Eckler suffered a hamstring injury. He's been placed on IR, but like Chubb, should be back later in the year. While rookie Joshua Kelly has been the number 2 so far in LA, he was punished for a fumble in week 3 and then fumbled again in week 4, so it would not be a surprise if Justin Jackson is heavily involved, at least until Josh can prove himself. Noah Fant suffered a sprained ankle that will keep him out for a few weeks. OJ Howard suffered a ruptured Achilles to end his season. This could lead to Rob Gronkowski becoming relevant again, but it's more likely Cameron Brate or nobody in Tampa. COVID-19 ended up dominating the news of the weekend. Tennessee Titans have had 20 players and staff test positive. With this many cases, their Week 5 game against the Bills is certainly in doubt. If you have players on either side of the ball, make sure you have a backup plan. Newton missed Week 4 due to a positive COVID-19 test. If he's asymptomatic and can provide 2 consecutive negative tests, then he would be fine for Week 5, but you'd be wise to roster a backup quarterback again for this week. Joshua Kelly, Justin Jackson and D'Ernest Johnson are the potential injury beneficiaries. Kelly should be owned everywhere already. Jackson must be picked up this week too. Johnson is more of a speculative add. Chase Edmonds steps up for the Cardinals with Kenyon Drake disappointing and dealing with a minor injury. It's unlikely Drake misses his time, but Edmonds should be owned anyway as the Cardinals might be getting ready to move on from Drake. Malcolm Brown may have been dropped in your league, but it seems he's still worth keeping around. This backfield is messy, but both Brown and Henderson are capable of giving you 20 points on any week, and that value can't be left on waivers. Keyshawn Vaughn emerged with a score on just 5 touches. He is only a stash right now because Ronald Jones is the number 1 here and Fournette will be back, but the 3rd round rookie proved he deserves a role in this offense. Laviska Shenault has been mentioned by me several times already, but his ownership is still paltry, so here we go again. The rookie is Jacksonville's Swiss Army knife, used all over the field in both rushing and receiving. He had 91 combined yards this week and could be set for even more. Tim Patrick is emerging as the potential Courtland Sutton replacement in Denver. He has 11 targets over the last 2 weeks, which he has converted into over 150 yards and 2 scores. Olamide Zaccheaus caught 8 passes for 86 yards this week, with Russell Gage absent and Julio Jones hobbled. His usage is totally dependent on injury, but he could make for a great play if you need a start for week 5. Scotty Miller has quietly had 3 good games out of 4. Chris Godwin isn't likely to be back, and if so, you can certainly play Scotty here too. Mo Cox was targeted in the end zone once again, so even if his 1-catch stat line is a little scary, probability of getting that score is much higher than with other tight ends. This week he plays Cleveland, who give up the 4th most points to fantasy tight ends. It's time to bring up Drew Sample again. Everyone rushed to pick him up after a big week 2, dropped him after he did nothing in week 3, but in week 4 he was targeted 5 times, including 2 misses in the end zone. Don't forget Eric Ebron just came off a 16-point fantasy game in week 3. He plays the Eagles this week, who give up the 3rd most points to fantasy tight ends. Teddy Bridgewater has had a quiet start to the season, but just put up 26 points against Arizona. This week he gets the Atlanta Falcons, who average an astonishing 33 points given up to opposing quarterbacks. That's 7 more than any other team in the league. Justin Herbert has been excellent since taking over the starting role, scoring 22, 15 and 23 fantasy points. This week he takes on the Saints, who have contained only 1 offense to fewer than 30 points. A lot of fantasy players have written off Kirk Cousins after that diabolical week 2, but he's quietly been making up for it over the last 2 weeks with over 500 passing yards, 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. You could do a lot worse than streaming Kirk against Seattle this week, who give up the 2nd most points to quarterbacks, including 21 to last week's streamer Ryan Fitzpatrick. The Arizona Cardinals are a great stream against the Jets. It's not that I like the Cards, but the Jets offense is absolutely terrible. They allow the most points to fantasy defenses, and you could stream your nan's bingo club against them. Outside of them, you have Miami Dolphins going up against the QB merry-go-round of San Francisco. Ignore the season-long stats. The Dolphins played New England, Buffalo and Seattle. Against Jacksonville, they scored 12 points. If you streamed the Broncos last week, you can probably hold them again through week 5. It's a visit to Foxborough and the Camless Patriots, who just gave up 20 full fantasy points to the Chiefs. Just be prepared to pivot if Cam is back. It's been great success in my kicker streaming section so far this year. My average score is 12.2 points, more than any single kicker in the league. Kaimi Fairbairn came through last week with 13 points. He stays at home in his dome this week as the Jags come to town with a 54-point over-under. It could be a field goal bonanza, so if Kaimi is taken, roll with Aldrich Rosas on the other side. He put up 15 points outdoors last week and should be in a great position to repeat indoors this time, as long as Stephen Housecat isn't back as the starter.